Hello and welcome to Ultraviolet Network's Fortinet How To. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we can set up MC lag with the FortiGate switch controller. I am your host, Matt Sharif. Before we get into the specifics, let's take a look at what MC lag is. For one, MC lag, the actual acronym stands for Multi-Chassis Link Aggregation Group. Other names you may have encountered in the industry is MLAG, VPC, as in virtual port channel, not virtual private computing, VLAG, and others. The goal of MC lag is really to allow two or more switches to participate in a link aggregation group. So basically to allow that link aggregation group to span more than one hardware chassis. And something that looks relatively like this. You know, you could have four switches down at the switch tier here, but let's just say we had two switches we wanted to connect up to our FortiGates for redundancy's sake. If one of the dark purple links dies and our LAN environment, they won't care, quite frankly, because if something comes up this particular link right here, and this link dies right here, it can span the multi-chassis lag inner chassis link and go up the A link if he's the primary firewall. Conversely, if B is the primary firewall and this link A here dies and a packet comes up and it can go over the MC lag inner chassis link and it'll go up the B link. So the goal here is to provide as much resiliency as possible, especially if you scale this out to the point where this is no longer a small environment and these are your core switches. You don't want any one link or any one piece of gear to take out your operational environment. So MC lag allows us to deliver that resiliency without too much complexity. Now, there are other ways this is addressed, like switch stacking, etc. However, given that the FortiGate includes the switch controller, this is about as close to switch stacking as we're going to get in the current offering from Fortinet. So with that, we're going to take a look. I'm going to show you my 271Fs. They're going to be laid out very similarly to this. Actually, this is going to be the exact topology if you take a look. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with factory fresh switches. I've done some minimal configuration on the FortiGates themselves, just setting up HA and some management connectivity. But beyond that, I have not set up any FortiLink stuff, so I'll see you in the lab. All right, so let's take a look at our FortiGate. So this is our 71F. It's running 7.0.8 code. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at our FortiLink interface. So one of the things that I like to do before I set up a FortiLink interface is actually delete the system provided FortiLink interface. Why, you might say? Well, depending on the hardware model, it might not be deployed in the manner you wish for it to be deployed. For instance, some ADFs that I've deployed FortiLink on, the type of interface right here is actually not an 802.3 aggregate, right? So what does that mean? That's a lag. That's a link aggregation group. So it's running LACP. Some models by default will have a FortiLink interface of type hardware switch, which is not desirable in this case because what I'm attempting to do, what we're trying to do here is to have a link aggregation group, an LACP aggregate, running between these two switches that we're trying to connect to. As you can see, interface members A and B are down. So how do you delete the FortiLink interface? Well, you can't really do it through the UI. What you can do is let's just take a look and make sure that there's, okay, so everything looks good here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to config system DHCP server. No, it's just server. And if I do a get, should only have two show. So one is used by the internal interface, which is the internal hardware switch. We'll get to that later. And then the other one's used by FortiLink. So we're going to go ahead and delete 2. All right, great. So now we've removed the DHCP scope for FortiLink. Now we can go into config, system, interface, delete, FortiLink. Okay, so where is it being referenced? What else is it being used by? I go back into network interfaces, take a look at FortiLink. Oh, the NTP. So I can remove that from here, system, settings, and remove him from NTP. And we'll just turn off NTP for now. This is important that we don't forget to re-add it once we create the FortiLink interface. So I could try that command one more time, and we're good. And so now what we can do is we can create our own FortiLink interface. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the CLI. The reason for that is I just want to be as specific as possible. You can use the GUI by going to Wi-Fi and switch controller, FortiLink interface, and do that. I want to use the CLI. For one, if your hardware type keeps defaulting to hardware switch, or to the interface type keeps defaulting to hardware switch, you will now know how to create a 802.3 AD link aggregate so that you can set it up from the CLI. So if we go to config, system, interface, and edit EUV.link, that's just what I'm choosing to call it. And set type aggregate, set FortiLink enable, set member A, B, set, what else is required here? So anything that has an asterisk by it is going to be required. That's one I forget frequently. VDOM root. Even though we don't have VDOMs enabled, you still have to specify that it belongs to the root VDOM. Technically, we only have single VDOM mode enabled, so we still have to tell it. So if I do a show real quick, and the reason I do this is just in case I forgot something, I can grab that, and at least most of my settings are preserved. And I'll type next. And hey, we didn't forget anything. End. Great. So now I can go to the UI and create the DHCP server first. I'll go back here, and where are we going? FortiLink interface, kind of there, kind of not there. So we're going to give him 10.255.1.0/24 is completely appropriate. DNS server will be the same as the interface IP. The default gateway will be the same as the interface IP. This is all standard FortiOS stuff. It should look pretty standard. NTP server is local. Nothing else we really need to change. Wireless controllers, that's not really a concern here since this is for switches. So we're good. Apply. Okay. Oh, yeah. I guess I should do that, not the network ID. Okay, so one thing I am going to do is I'm going to disable this interface. And the reason why we're doing this is because now I'm going to plug in my switches, but I don't want them to pop up just yet. If you take a look, manage FortiSwitches, we don't have anything in there. So that's the way it needs to be. I'm go back here and give me one moment. I'm going to go plug the switches in and I'll be right back. Well, all right, now I'm back. Through the magic of video editing, I've already reconnected my interfaces. I'm going to click apply here real quick. As you can see, it's still showing us down, and the reason why is that it's disabled. We can go into network interfaces here. UV link is disabled. As soon as I go ahead and set status enable, we'll wait a little bit. Let it recognize. There we go. It's up. All of a sudden, we start to see our VLANs created. All this stuff. I didn't create any of this. This is all part of the process of adding FortiSwitches. So you'll notice that while this video is serving to look at MC lag as well, we added switches. So you can follow these instructions up to this point just to add FortiSwitches. So we can go down and look at manage FortiSwitches. We should see two switches that are unauthorized. We are going to authorize them both. Now, one thing I want to point out before I do this, and I kind of forgot to mention it earlier, FortiLink split interface at this point is enabled. Why? So what this does is it puts the members of A and B in it puts the members of A and B in an active passive state. So everything can get to the switches through switch A, and then spanning tree will say, hey, port B is blocking. At the end of this setup, once we validated the things that we need are present, I'm going to turn off FortiLink split interface, and I'm going to allow both interfaces to be active. So with that, let's get back to that and manage FortiSwitches. Okay, we're going to authorize these. These switches will reboot. So it's going to take some time, and through the magic of video editing, we're going to wait for the reboot to happen. Oh, and one more thing before I forget. I did say it was important that we re-add. Oh, I guess since I set either because I set it to FortiLink, type FortiLink, or because I set the NTP to local in the DHCP server, I'm not quite sure. I think it's because it's type FortiLink. It automatically added it to the interfaces. The reason this happens automatically is Fortinet previously, at least as far back as 6.0 code, you used to have to do this manually. If you forgot to do this, what would end up happening is that your switches, when they would reboot, they sometimes would come up at the Linux or Unix epoch time of December 31st, 1969, or whatnot, or 1970. And of course, with time being completely out of sync, they would never sync up with the FortiGate, and your switches after they got authorized, they would never ever be approved, or they would never ever come to green, excuse me, or available here, like manage FortiSwitches. See, these things are already online right now, which is perfect. Um, so at some point, I think it was either 6.2 or 6.4, Fortinet did some additional enhancements to make it easier, more intuitive for us that, hey, you do need that NTP server for the FortiLink devices. So with that being said, we've got this here, and I'm just going to connect to the CLI. Now these switches have just been wired up. They have not been configured at all, other than with whatever the FortiLink stuff is configured. And so we're going to go ahead and log into them. Okay, so show switch trunk. Look at that. Just by connecting them up, we can see that the switches see ports 25 through 28 as the inner switch link auto ISL, and and you can see here this 4E PTF. This is if you add a FS in front of that, or FS2, so that's a FortiSwitch the 224E. So there's a 224E. Right, so we've got to make some tweaks to this so it knows what we want. This is going to be our inner switch link, right? And then this is going to be our connection up to the FortiGate. So if I go to config switch trunk, edit for, and it's that guy, set MC lag ICL enable. Okay, show, perfect. Next. So that's going to take a minute because it's going to start off some stuff, right? So the MC lag ICL is basically how it exchanges all the admin keys for LACP sessions. So edit, and it's the other one, the GT FortiGate 71F. So, and I'll do set MC lag enable. So what this does is it tells it, hey, this is part of an MC lag link. So I need to go do the same thing on the other switch. So I'll connect to the CLI. And as soon as I'm prompted to log in, I will. And this may take a moment because of what we just did with the switch topology. Give it some time. I could also do it from here, SSH admin at 10.2, what was it? 255. So it's going to be execute exec SSH admin at 10.255.1.3. Should be able to get to it. But put our password in, show switch trunk, config switch trunk. So I SSH from the 2735 switch down to this 1773 switch. Edit for this guy, set MC lag, inter chassis link enable, right? Next, gonna give it a moment. So now they're gonna agree that this is going to be an MC lag inter chassis link, and then we're gonna edit set MC lag enable. So if I do a show now, next, if I do a show on both trunk groups, you'll see that MC lag's inter chassis link is enabled on the inter switch link, which is a 4-port aggregate. And then the connection up to the FortiGate, it has MC lag enabled, and that's port 23 that is participating in that. So we'll say end, great, and that will be that. So we should be able to close that, manage FortiSwitches. So at this point, since we've got MC lag configured, that's really all there is to MC lag. We can go back to the FortiLink interface and disable the FortiLink split interface. So we can go back here, wait for both ports to come up. They're coming back up. We're going to do this. Now, it's going to take a minute for it to rebuild the topology to where it can kind of make sense of it. So let's see here. See the group of switches. Nope. List. So here's our list of switches. So we can go back to this guy if I can connect with CLI. And as you can see, we can get to him now. So do that. Do this guy too. So the FortiGate's still trying to make sure everything's sent down correctly and all that communication is established. So this takes a moment, but we should be good to go. Get this topology rolling. Call me impatient. There we go. There's our topology. And as you can see, the FortiGate now also sees this as an inter-chassis link. And now you're going to say, well, hey, okay, that's all great. We've got MC lag configured, but what if I have downstream switches I want to connect to this MC lag stack? Like I said in the beginning of this video, we don't want to allow any one link to take down a piece of our network or all of our network. Well, that is pretty simple to set up. We can go to FortiSwitch ports, right? And we can go to this trunk area here. As you can see, we don't have any trunks created. Create a trunk group. And we can call it access access SW1. We'll call it access switch 1, okay? MC lag needs to be enabled, and there's a reason for this. So if I go and select members, let's say port 1 on switch 1773, which I really need to rename, given port 1, now I can't select any ports off of 2735. So what we need to do is we need to go to set MC lag to enable, and also we can either set the LACP mode to active or passive. You don't want static lags, and the reason why is static lags doesn't do any kind of integrity checking on the link itself. It will see that it's got layer 2 connectivity, and it'll start forwarding frames out of that. That is very bad because if you have a damaged cable and you're getting CRCs on that interface, it's just going to forward traffic out of there and you're going to lose data or corrupt data. So we'll go with active LACP. And now I can take port 1 from both switches and create my link aggregation group. Now, as far as the downstream switch is concerned, to him, it looks like it's a regular link aggregation group, port channel, whatever you want to call it, and we'll click OK. So now I can take my downstream switch, plug them into port 1 of both of these switches, and you'll get something, you know, and you'll get something that's now resilient. You could edit the port members, say if you wanted 2 port members here, completely doable. You got double, you got 2 gigs, actually 4 gigs aggregate throughput. However, if you lose a switch or whatever, you still have 2 gigs aggregate throughput. So while we're here, since we've already created this MC lag, we're probably going to want to create some VLANs too. Now this should probably be in a separate video on how do you set up um, FortiSwitches, but since I've combined it all in here, I might as well go for the full Monty. So for that, the FortiSwitch VLAN is very simply just another interface on the FortiGate, right? So you can go here. Let's say we're going to create VDI access, right? And the VLAN ID here is going to be VLAN 110, and our network address is going to be 10.201.0.1/24. I will, since it's going to be a VDI environment, we're going to go ahead and enable ping and enable a DHCP server. We'll put NTP on the interface. We're not going to do anything additional right now. I will do device detection, and that will be good enough. So now you've created the VLAN. And you know what? I'll take it a little bit further, make it stand out, and we'll add some green color there. Okay, perfect. We've got this. We can go to our FortiSwitch ports, go back to ports, and set the native VLAN, say port 3 to VDI access. And I'll go down here. I like things to be somewhat even. So VDI access, this will be going back to our VDI servers. So yeah, this is a good thing to do. One of the things I am going to do at this point is rename these switches so that I have something a little easier, so I know which one's which. Well, one of the ways you can do this is go to Manage FortiSwitch, and I can go Edit, right? Okay, this is all great. I can give it a name, but how do I know which switch is it? Is it the upper or the lower? So one of the things I can do is, let's go back to the list. This will make that a little easier. I can go to blink the LEDs, blink them for 5 minutes. I can look over, and this 2735 is my upper switch. So I can go edit, upper switch, good deal. And now he shows up as upper switch, and then this guy is going to be lower switch, and that's that. And if I did not turn off the blinking LEDs after about 5 minutes, they would stop, but I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. If you go back to your FortiSwitch ports now I've got my lower switch and my upper switch. So it's a little easier for me to know which switch I'm working with. Now, the reason why the upper switch appears below the lower switch is due to the fact that these are ordered by serial number. So the serial number is S224E PTF 2200. So that's the same. 1773 is lower than 2735, and that's why it's showing up in the order it's showing up. But now I actually have something to help key me in on what the heck switch this is. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close this out. So in this video, we went ahead and covered how to delete the default FortiLink interface, create your own using the CLI in the event that for whatever reason FortiLink is stuck on hardware switch. And then from there, we added our FortiSwitches, authorized them, made sure that we added the MC lag parameters we wanted, turned off split interface, renamed our switches so that it's a little easier to work with as opposed to working with serial numbers. Last but not least, we created a VLAN. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful. I look forward to seeing you in future videos.